All right, welcome in the college basketball tip-off show powered by WagerTalk.com. As we've already got a handful of games underway. One just finished, in fact, so I can throw up now. Thank you, University of Miami, losing to Drake by 1,000,000. The good news is we've got plenty of other games coming up here today. A lot of tournaments, a lot of neutral site games with teams that would not normally see each other during the regular season have an opportunity with the litmus test, if you will. And we've got a few of those games we're going to go over here, including Nevada, Vandy. We're going to talk Tennessee, Virginia. We're going to talk Baylor, St. John's. And, of course, we're going to talk Syracuse, Texas. I'll give you three guesses who's on the show and why we're talking Syracuse and Texas as we welcome in the pen, Ralph Michaels in the house. And if you guessed Adam Trigger, bingo, ready to roll here.
I didn't choose that game though, but I will have an opinion. But
if anybody is going to know what Syracuse is up to, I promise you it's going to be Adam Trigger. As welcome in here, guys. Gotta love a little day college basketball to get it going. But let's start with that game. In fact, let's go with that Texas and Syracuse game to start things here, Trig. And we're going to go ahead and give you the floor on this game. It feels like a big number for Texas, but is it a big number for Texas? What is Syracuse this year?
Well, Joe, your guess is as good as mine on that. If you've watched them play the first couple games, this team has no identity right now. I chalk it up to coaching. Like I'm still the jury for me is still out on Red Autry as a head coach. I understand it was like kind of something that was in place when Boeheim, there was not even a coaching search. It was like Boeheim announced his retirement. The next day, Autry was the head coach. I personally think the better Syracuse head coach is coaching Siena right now and Jerry McNamara. That's just my opinion. But I've been watching the Syracuse team play now for over a season, right? Last season and then the first couple games of this season. Like, this just isn't a well-coached team. Now, I do think the number's too big, right? Like, I believe this is a neutral court down in New York City. I think is this Barclays Center, Joe?
I believe it is, yes. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, yep. So this is like, this is Syracuse home game 2.0. They always get a good showing in the city. That being said, Texas has a lot of alum that travel, and they're in the city as well. But on a neutral, I make this like 7.5. Now, what I think Syracuse has going for them is a couple of things. One, I think Texas is a little bit in the same boat from a shot selection standpoint, kind of figuring out what they want to do. So at the same time, like Syracuse is having their struggles, but I don't know that you want to just come out and lay 10.5 here with Texas. I do think that people are going to make too much of the of Syracuse's close calls, like Lemoyne and Colgate kind of coming in and giving them tough games. Those are area teams. Like, that's their Super Bowl. That's their Super Bowl. Cornell, Albany, when those types of teams get to come out to the Dome and play, it's typically just a bigger game for them than it is for Syracuse. And we've seen this in the past. Syracuse go through the motions in those games. Syracuse has lost a couple of those games over the years. Colgate got him twice in recent years. So the more concerning result to me, Joe, was being taken to overtime by Youngstown State. I know that's a team Ralph is probably pretty familiar with, and I don't think they're good at all this year. So that was the more concerning result. That being said, I don't think you fully judge Cuse on those kind of couple close calls, and they won all three of those games, so they found a way. My gut says Syracuse hangs around here. I make the number closer to like 7.5, 8, 8.5. So 10.5 shows some value, but I'm not ready to put my money on this team yet. So Syracuse or pass, but just not super confident in the orange right now, and not a game I want to bet.
All right, good stuff there, Trig. Ralph, call me crazy. Who the hell? Oh, that's right. They've played one real team, Ohio State, Texas, and they lost. And that was the first game of the year, right? But Mississippi Valley State, one of your favorite teams to lay a best bet down on this show over the years here, Ralph. But who the hell have they played? They haven't played anybody in this spot here. This is a pretty good test and to lay double digits, it just feels like a big number here, Ralph, on a neutral court.
Yeah, but again, I can't get to the Syracuse side. As Adam said, again, there's certain losses you can write off, but Youngstown State in 2 overtimes. Yeah, they won by 9, so the win actually looks a little better than it was, but they were stretching it. Adam, I think Youngstown State is still picked in the top 4 of the Horizon, so they're not. The Horizon's down though this year, so
that speaks more to the Horizon. This is not like the Youngstown State teams from the last couple of years.
That's a good
Horizon
point.
had a couple real good years there, where Cleveland State was competitive and Northern Kentucky was there, and Youngstown State had a couple good years. So yes, they're going to be in the upper half of the Horizon, but that again is a very down year for the Horizon. So I was going to go to the over on this game. Syracuse is playing faster than their old ways. Texas on offense plays fast, but they play slow on defense. What kept me away from the over was this. How many articles have we read when the ACC tournament was in the Barclays Center, and those teams really struggle shooting threes early? The sight lines seem different, the lighting seems weird, and numerous coaches and teams have talked about that. So really, just the setting was enough to keep me off using this as an over, as an opinion. I would still lean that way, but keep your eye on how well they shoot from 3 in this neutral setting.
All right, that game coming up a little bit later here today, guys. We've got another one that I know a lot of folks have been looking forward to, and that is, of course, 7 o'clock Eastern time. I believe the tip for Baylor taking on the Johnnies, St. John's. It does appear like there's a lot of love for Baylor in the marketplace for this game, as it was 2 overnight. Now I'm seeing 3s in the marketplace. This is the first true road game for the Johnnies. In the meantime, it feels, Trig, like the Baylor Bears, they've traveled all over the country here and have taken on some quality competition. So in the Bahamas, you are at this tournament, so you kind of know the atmosphere and the feel. What do you think we're going to get from Baylor and the Johnnies here today?
Yeah, so I played Baylor last night. I took Baylor on the money line. It was like minus 130. It may be up a little bit right now, but that's still, that's still probably the way I would play it. I don't want you to lay 3 when I'm on the money line, so I would just bet a little bit smaller, keep your risk amount in line. But it is a 4% play for me. Yes, Joe, we were at this tournament last year, and I think that's important. So there's a couple things from this tournament last year that I remember the players talking about and that I think matter. The players liked the sight lines in that ballroom. So that's not always the case, right? Like you get these tournaments, neutral site venues. Sometimes they're playing in a weird location and players don't love it. There was multiple players that I remember talking, because remember, we had like great access to that tournament. There was players all over the place. Georgia players out playing roulette till 4 a.m. But, they all said that they liked shooting in there. I remember Tyler Perry mentioned liking shooting in that, it was just a good gym to shoot in. I also think the rims were a little bit soft. And if you go back and look at some of the total, now there's more games in this building last year than just we were at. But the ones from the little sort of Baha Mar Classic that we were at, Kansas State, Miami scored 1 billion points. I think like 175 points. I believe Miami and Georgia went over, and I'm pretty sure I know Kansas State, Providence went over because it went into overtime. You'd have to look and see if it would have gone over in regulation. But the point was good sight lines, soft rims. So I think the totals, I kind of quickly looked at the totals. It looks like they've probably adjusted for that a little bit. But Baylor's an elite shooting team. And I think Baylor's going to be better than they were last year for a couple of reasons. So I kind of feel like Baylor just lights up St. John's, from behind the arc here and has the upper hand in this game. Norchad Omier, Joe, your guy from Miami, obviously a big part of their Final Four team, is now on Baylor. And the reason that's significant is he's really kind of allowed to play the 4. So if you watch Miami the last couple of years, Omier kind of had to play the 5. 2 years ago, when they made the Final Four, it wasn't as big of an issue because they had such elite players on that team, elite guards, so much good shooting. Last year, Miami didn't have that, and he really got exposed as being undersized at the position. Now at Baylor, he can kind of slide over to the 4. Ojinawa, is in there for like 20, 25 minutes a game, 6'10" center. and he's sort of in his more natural position. So it's not surprising at all to me that he's sort of been Baylor's best player, at least their best scorer, one of their best players to this point. Another thing I like about Baylor, they have a guy named Jaden Nunn, who is now year number 2 of I like these portal guys in year 2. Sometimes it takes them a year. I remember going to Madison Square Garden with CT last year. We kind of left thinking, man, there's no leader on this Baylor team. Ray J. Dennis had transferred in from Toledo. Nunn came in from VCU. They were new. They were new on campus. It's hard to be a leader at a place when you're new there. Now he's in his second season. He looks very comfortable on the team and just surrounded by talent. I don't see that same type of talent on the St. John side. So for those reasons, I just felt like Baylor was the right side. An elite shooting team last year and more pieces this year. That means I don't think they're going to just have to live and die by the 3. But if the 3's cooking, they're going to win a lot of games that way, and I think they win this one.
All right, liking Baylor here tonight. Ralph, how about you? I mean, I think Ken Palm's got the Johnnies somewhere around 17, 18, somewhere in that ballpark. The ceiling feels like, especially with some of the guys that transferred in for Patino, the ceiling is there for the Johnnies, but this is a big ask, right? First true road game here.
Yeah, Joe, there's only one way I would go, and that's Baylor. You can give St. John's any ranking you want, but with the newcomers they have, when you played Fordham, Quinnipiac, and Wagner, yeah, you played New Mexico, and yes, you beat them by, 14 points, but you played all 4 games at home. And, is the Baylor loss against Gonzaga, the blowout loss, I should say, a 38-point shellacking. But we know this. Game 1 of a season, you can just get road run out of the building, and that's what happens. What do they do the next game? They play Arkansas in a neutral setting. They win that game by 5. I just think the experience they have. Prior to coming on, Joe had to inform me. I wasn't even aware of this, so thank you, Joe. VJ Edgecombe, one of the top freshmen in all of college basketball, was born in the Bahamas. He played through 9th grade there and then went to West Palm High School, I believe. So, that has to be something special for him to play as well. Yeah, and I think that is you make a trip to the Bahamas, you're excited about him, and this kid that is likely your best player, even after 4 games. I think if you took a vote, most people would likely say that. When he's playing in front of old family and friends, I think that is some sort of unique, special thing that you can hang your hat on. St. John's, again, maybe they're going to be good. Yes, they're going to be, a top 20, top 25, top 30 team, but they need to prove it to me away from home. So Baylor, the only way I can go.
All right, looking at the Baylor Bears here for this one in the Bahamas. That should be a good one here tonight. We got another one, though, I believe, over in Charleston happening this tonight here with Nevada taking on Vandy. And we'll get to that game here in just a second, but I want to send a shout-out to Big Daddy, Titan CT, Bill Sandoval hanging out with us in the chat rooms here today. We appreciate you guys stopping by. Don't forget to hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Become part of that WagerTalk TV family. And if there is a game on the card tonight in college hoops you want to talk about, these would be the 2 guys you want to ask those questions with here. So drop them in the chat room, and we'll get to as many as we can here. But let's talk about Steve Alford, and let's talk about Nevada and this group of, from what I understand, a very an older group here in Nevada. A lot of experience here, Trig, for this team, taking on Vandy, who has been impressive thus far. A lot of new faces, but who do you give the edge to in this one I believe, Charleston?
Yeah, this was an interesting one, and I'll leave this one mostly for Ralph because I really don't have a strong opinion. One thing I'll say is my number and my handicap don't really match up here, so it was kind of an easy one for me to throw out. My numbers make this Vandy as a slight favorite, but I'm concerned with Vandy's size disadvantage in this one. So that's why this one I kind of quickly threw out. I have been impressed with Vanderbilt enough where I didn't want to go against them. And again, when I have my numbers make this Vandy -1, so I get why the market has moved from where it was. if it moves more, I think you would have to consider playing back against it maybe a little bit, just because I do think there's matchup edges in this one for Nevada, specifically their size up front and just their general size against Vandy as it is. But I couldn't get there with this one, so it was an easy pass.
Ralph, I mean, call me crazy. I think both these teams, we got 8-0 combined, and both teams have some decent wins on the resume, right? Nevada already beat Washington. They beat Santa Clara by double digits, and now they get to go head-to-head here. But again, a very experienced roster here for Nevada. What do you think we're going to get?
I have a very strong lean for Nevada, Joe. And let's just break down their stat profiles from year to date. Wolfpack 4-0 against the spread. They're shooting 51.7%, and they're allowing 36%. Excellent numbers. Vanderbilt shooting 48%. So the Wolfpack slightly better. Vanderbilt allowing 43%. The Wolfpack better. But when you look at strength of schedule, Nevada, middle of the road, 190. Vanderbilt's played the number 352nd toughest schedule. They've played nobody. Yes, they played Cal. They beat Cal, but that was at home. Remember, Vanderbilt has 5 new starters. They have a new head coach. They're trying to learn Byington's system from James Madison. They're going to be one of the fastest paced teams. So when you have a lot of young kids wanting to play very, very fast against a defense that has played incredible defense, they're number 45 in Ken Palm's efficiency rankings, and you're playing away from home, the Wolfpack are the only way I can go. And, this is a situation where Vanderbilt wants to play fast. They're number 4 on offensive tempo. Nevada wants to play slow, number 339 defensive tempo. If I have the better team with more experienced guards and I think they can control the tempo, that's another reason to lean Wolfpack. Wolfpack for me.
Wolfpack for Ralph. Jake, who is the former Michigan State guy? And I can't remember his name that's on Vandy now. I feel like he played at Michigan State forever.
Is it Clayton? Hold on a second. I gotta, dude, man. I'll tell you what, Joe. With the number of players that move
crazy
around these days, it really is. I thought it was. Hold on a second. I thought it was Clayton, but
he was there forever. And then I couldn't believe when I saw that
it's
was it Hoggard? Is
Hoggard,
that it?
Hoggard,
was it
Hoggard.
Hoggard? That's right. It was the kid AJ.
Hoggard,
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Again, another kid that's been in college for 7 years. But man, I mean, it is. You need a whole. It's like a full-time job trying to keep track of like where some of these dudes end up. It's crazy.
Unreal. I mean, my goodness. Steve Alford, by the way, Nevada route, to your point, has 4 fifth-year players, and he's got another one. I think that's on his 6th year. So we're starting to see a lot of these teams with all this experience and these older players. And we'll see. I mean, Steve Alford can coach for sure. It seems like a short enough number to be able to get behind them against Vandy, and that game coming up a little bit later today. All right, we got another game here that we'll talk about before we dive into some of the questions on the games we have and throw out a few best bets. Let's talk about Tennessee as they're taking on Virginia here in this matchup today. This one at 9:30. This also in the Bahamas. And Trig, Dalton Connect ain't walking through those gym doors for Tennessee. I don't know that it means all that much, but Virginia it still feels like the Tony Bennett last-minute retirement leading into the season. Boy, oh boy, it just feels like this is a tough spot for Virginia against this Tennessee team. What were you thinking in this one?
So, Joe, I have a little bit of an updated take here on just on Virginia in general. We did a show like right before the beginning of the season, and my sort of theory was, man, if Tony Bennett thought this team was any good, he would have hung around and at least stuck it out till March. If he thought he was sitting on a really good team, he sticks it out till March. The fact that he left early was like that was sort of the writing on the wall for me. But now I've got a new theory that Virginia is maybe not as bad, and I have some stuff to back it up here. So I think Ron Sanchez is a pretty decent coach. He had a very good team at Charlotte the year before he left to be an assistant on Bennett's staff. Ali Khalifa was on that team. I believe they won the NIT. Bennett, something that my buddy Aaron Kidd, who is a big Virginia fan, almost Virginia insider, if you will, season ticket holder, goes to a lot of games. Something he said internally they've talked about is maybe Tony Bennett was holding the offense back a little bit. Like he's so sort of specific in like the shot he wants and the pace he wants to play that he was kind of holding the team back. If you go to the Villanova game, McNeely, they kind of let just take whatever shot he wanted. And, it was the reason that they beat Villanova. Both these teams are still very good defensively. Virginia is still solid defensively. So it's like you're still going to get that, sort of Virginia grinded out type game. But they might just be a little bit less restricted on offense. And that could really help them here. Now, I don't know that I'm ready to buy in on Virginia being any sort of a contender, but this number feels high. I think this should be more like 10, 10 and a half, 11. You're talking neutral court here. This is also in the Bahamas. Who knows? Maybe the sight lines and the soft rims aid in the shooting there a little bit. My final theory with that is Tony Bennett's such a good dude that he waited to leave so Ron Sanchez could get a crack at being the head coach of this team. They're very good friends. And, I just think this is too many. I like what I've seen out of Tennessee. The Louisville win is super impressive, though I think that had something to do with Louisville being a new team and not fully ready to play. The other teams Tennessee has played has really not been competition the caliber of Virginia. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a good game, Joe. I lean Virginia. Again, this is kind of in the category of Syracuse. I don't know if I'll bet it, but this one feels pretty big to me.
Kind of does here, Ralph. What were your thoughts with this Virginia team, though, once you knew Bennett stepped down here? It feels and looks similar to what you would expect from Virginia, but is it enough here, do you think, to be able to beat what, Rick Barnes is still calling one of his better teams here, which is saying something? What do you think we're going to get?
Well, Sanchez did the smart thing. I mean, he didn't change the team. He basically kept the pack line defense, and it's very similar to what it was. And he didn't try to change schemes. And I think that was the right thing to do. I mean, him and other coaches are in a very tough position replacing those legendary coaches. But they were prepping for this. You look at Virginia; they're still number 362 in tempo. Their 3-point D not quite there yet. Their 2-point D is very good. So. Can Tennessee shoot the three? Well, they shot the three to the tune of 41.6% this season. That is number 22 in the country, but they don't shoot that many number threes. They're only averaging 27 three-point shots a game. That's in the 250. So, while the numbers have been good, I think that has more to do with the defenses they've played. And let's see, take a look. Gardner-Webb, number 214 on defense. Montana, 276. Austin Peay, number 219. Louisville does have the number 60 defensive efficiency, and they did put up 72 points against them. Again, with the tempos the way they are, and Tennessee's defense not getting enough credit. Yes, you look at Ken Palm when you see their high rankings, but I watched part of a couple games with them. And the first game they allowed Gardner-Webb, I think 44% shooting. And they only won by 16. They were laying 27.5. But since that time, what they did against Louisville to me was just amazing. They held Louisville to 16 of 60. That is 26%. Followed that up with 36% against Montana, 35% against Austin Peay. We'll wait to see. Adams brought up the sight lines here and the baskets, and I can appreciate that, but even with that, I'm going to go and say that I'm going to go under first half. I think when you have two tempos that are in the 300s pluses, you're going to get off to a slow start. You're in a unique setting. And you know what? Virginia is number 363 in offensive rebounding. And that's including games against Coppin State, Villanova, and Campbell. So, if you're not going to get second shots on the offensive rim, and Tennessee is going to bring the ball back down on a slow pace, Yes, it may speed up in the second half, but I'm going to go first half under here between the Cavs and the Volunteers.
Yeah, not a bad look there, Ralph. I know Big Daddy was in the chat room. He too looking at the full game under 125 and a half. Don't hate that look either. That whole pack line defense, isn't that about forcing guys to shoot jump shots, right? Try not to give anything up inside the paint. I don't know if that's going to work great, Trig, for Virginia in this one.
I want to throw something out there that I feel like we really learned when we were at Baha Mar last year at that tournament. And that's especially the big power conference teams. Like, every team kind of approaches these MTE early season tournaments differently. And I don't know how you figure out a lot of this stuff without like being there and whatnot. But like, Joe, Georgia was clearly there as like a team building event last year. They let the kids run wild in the casino, have a good time. But that's like, it kind of is like, okay, like I'm sure Mike's White was probably looking at it like, we're at a disadvantage here anyway. Let's have some fun. Let's like build the camaraderie of the team. They didn't seem to care, right? Like, whereas Tang and Kansas State were far more business-like. Like, they were really there. Like, you didn't see the Kansas State players around like that. They were there trying to win that tournament. So, especially these destination ones, I mean, again, it's just, I'd be careful firing away in these because it really is a vacation for like these players too. And we found that out when we were there last year. Like, they're on vacation too for these. They're allowed to have a good time. And sometimes that it makes the results sort of difficult to handicap in these destination MTE early November tournaments.
Yeah, it's true. It's, what some of the older teams, you got to figure they're trying to work some things out. Some of the newer teams, like you said, last year with Georgia, trying to create some team building here. Going to be interesting in these games all weekend long. And I do believe we got a couple of questions on some of the games here that are coming up. We'll get to those in a minute because one of them might be a best bet from these guys. And I'll shoot it back to you here, Ralph. Kick us off with the slate of games here today. Or is there one game or one play you liked a little bit more than the rest?
Yeah, Joe, I'm going to go, I want to make one more point about the early season tournaments for Adam. Again, you don't always know if people are going down there for team building or they want to win. But if you find a mid-major that has a shot to pull the upset against a Power 4 team, those are the teams you want to circle because if you lose one of these, if St. John's or Vandy or Nevada lose, it doesn't hurt their resume at all. If you're a mid-major that needs this win, that is a huge motivational tool if you get to the semifinals and finals for that. Again, it's easy for me, Joe. It's Nevada. I told you I was strong on that. It was in the mix to be one of my selections. Again, Vanderbilt, decent numbers, but against that schedule, I can't trust you. And again, Nevada is a special team. Coaches talk about if you can get a few players like Ohio State on football, for you to have 3 people that would be playing in the NFL to come back for this season makes it special. Nevada is in that same position where they didn't lose their people to the transfer portal. They came back. They bought into the program, multi-year starters for the teams. Those are like the kind of teams I want to play on early, especially when they're as well coached as the Wolfpack. Easy for me. Best bet Nevada.
All right, Nevada it is. What'd you have, Trick?
Yeah, Ralph made a tremendous point, and Nevada, is one of those teams last year, Joe, we saw like 4 power conference teams. The way, and I said this last week, and this really holds true this upcoming week. The way NCAA has reworked the way they look at these tournaments, the power conference teams do not get penalized for losses in November and December. So a Georgia who's playing in the SEC can afford to just team build and approach things differently, the same way some of these small majors can, like a small major, unless they have just an insane non-conference season, a team like a Princeton or like a Siena, I'll just use them as an example, right? Like, they're going to have to win their conference tournament. Ralph makes a really good point. It's these Nevadas, it's these Daytons, like these Mountain West teams, the A10, the American, that had, they're a 2-bid league, but could be a 3-bid league. They're a 3-bid league, but could be a 4-bid league. those are the types of teams that are, these types of games are life and death. I definitely think that matters. So when I'm looking at these tournaments, I'm absolutely factoring that in. A10, Mountain West, American. Ralph, chime in if there's other like sort of those like second tier conferences that have multi bids. Those are the teams that you're looking for, and Nevada's definitely one of those teams. So I think that's a great call.
Yeah, the Wichita States, the Butlers, from a few years ago, those are the exact type of situations that got them to where they are now, and they're now household names where they weren't before. They were very good mid-majors that have taken the next step up.
All right. Well, Trig, go ahead and lay it out for us. I know they were asking in the chat room if there was a big spread dog that you like here on the card. Bill wanted to know, but what's your best bet? What game were you looking at here tonight?
Yeah, so as far as big spread underdogs, like I had been on a really nice run with those like 20-plus point dogs, and then Ryder shot 1 for 16 from 3 on Tuesday night and failed to cover by like a bucket. Big spread underdogs, I would say look at Virginia or Syracuse. One of them is probably going to cover. I'm not sure which one, but those would be – I have a feeling one of those two teams is very much in a game. Another underdog I think could be live today is Texas State. They're in that same tournament that's down in South Carolina, the one that Ohio and Memphis just played in. Mm-hmm. Bradley's a good team, but Texas State it had insane injury concerns last year. A lot of these guys are healthy now. So that's, what would be an underdog I would look at. As far as the best bet's concerned, I gave you one of my client plays is Baylor. I took them on the money line last night. I would still just bet accordingly and play it on the money line today. I just think they're a superior team to St. John's right now. This is the Bahamas tournament. I do think Scott Drew is one of the best coaches in the country, in my opinion. I think he will. I don't think he's messing around, especially after just getting boat raced by Gonzaga on opening night. Like that to me, that was always probably going to happen. That was a true road game for them, to start the season. So I think this matters for this Baylor team. And I think Baylor this year to last year really improved in the areas that they needed to improve in. They're elite this year. I think Baylor's one of I think you can count on two hands right now the number of teams that could actually win a national championship this year. And Baylor's one of those teams. And you're getting them at essentially a pick on a neutral floor. It's too good to pass up for me. So I really think Baylor just runs away with this one tonight.
All right, liking Baylor to run away with it against the Johnnies here tonight. That's a good one. My best bet is actually I'm going to go to a game that I believe it was Big Daddy in the chat room wanted to know thoughts on Seton Hall and VCU. This is another one, I believe, a Charleston neutral site game. And I'm sorry. Anybody explain to me how the hell we're getting over 125.5 points here with Seton Hall, who might be actually one of the single worst offensive teams that I have had to bear watching in these games here. I mean, I know Holloway, he lost 9 players from the roster a year ago. But conceptually, he's still all about playing defense and rebounding, barely squeaked by St. Peter's, but I haven't seen anybody score more than 57 points in a single game against them. I know they held Wagner and Ralph. Have we ever seen a game where you hold a team to 29 points, was it, or 28 points in a game? I don't care who you're playing. That's impressive stuff, and we all know what VCU is going to do. VCU, quality mid-major to what the point that these guys were talking about, where you get these mid-majors in these MTE tournaments, man, that they want to prove something, but you got a Seton Hall team that's trying to figure it out as well. And I have no idea. To me, it's a dead under at 125.5. I mean, Trig, I can't trust Seton Hall to score enough to get this thing up and over, but I can trust them to limit what VCU can do. No?
So I love this VCU team. Like I talked about them prior to the season, gave them out on a couple shows to win the A10 at 5-1. I think it got steamed all the way down to 2-1.
Yep.
I got to see them play. First week of the season out. It was kind of like an MTE at Navy. They played Boston College, absolutely destroyed a bad Boston College team. to your point, this is one of those teams. VCU kind of falls into the mix where they're definitely a team that if they can win, if they can compile nice wins in the non-conference, they're going to be in the mix for an at-large. I think they are significantly better than Seton Hall. Unfortunately, I think the number's about right. At 7, 8. I mean, 8 was a little high. I saw this get bet down, I think, to 6.5. If it got bet down any further, I'd have to consider VCU. I don't like Seton Hall in this spot. I don't think, unless they can just destroy VCU on the interior, which I'm not sure that they're going to be able to do, I don't think Seton Hall is. I could see them getting blown out here. So VCU's the lean for me, but the number feels right at 7, so I left it.
I like VCU too, but I mean, we're 362nd in the country points per game is what the offensive Seton Hall is bringing to the table here tonight, Ralph, in this game. On a neutral site, to me, it's a dead under or maybe even a team total under. What are you seeing, Ralph?
You know, there's actually a lot more than I thought. Since 2021,
really?
So we're talking the 21, 22, 23, and 24 season, three seasons plus, there have been 120 games where an opponent held someone to 40 points or less. So,
wow.
FYI, those teams are 119 and 101. So 54.1% the game after allowing 40 points or less in your last game.
Wow. That is going to be an interesting one here for sure. I know one other game I saw, guys, that was also interesting. And Trig, I know you can speak to this team, but listen, Texas Tech is going to be very formidable here in the Big 12, but St. Joe's is not going to be rolled over. I mean, I just don't see St. Joe's rolling over for Texas Tech. I mean, the number, interesting enough, was 10.5. It's still 10.5, Trig, which means we're not seeing a whole lot of steam in the market for Texas Tech here, but it feels like St. Joe's should be able to keep this thing competitive, no?
I mean, the guards on St. Joe's can keep them competitive with anyone. That's the trick
right.
to this St. Joe's team. They have some unreal guards that should be able to keep them in games. I'm concerned that they don't get much else against Texas Tech. So unless Reynolds and those guards are absolutely balling out, they could end up getting blown out. Now, it's a neutral court. This is also down at Barclays, I believe. And again, these you can get the crazier results here. Obviously, a quicker trip from Philly for St. Joe's. But my concern would be, what does St. Joe's get from anyone not their sort of trio of really good guards? And that's where it could get ugly. So I kind of lean Texas Tech because I've seen some things I didn't really love about St. Joe's. They had a really bad loss to Central Connecticut State. Struggled with a Navy team that has not looked good really since that game or that first week of the season. And my gut is telling me they missed the kid that transferred to Providence. They lost their big, their kind of most impactful big from last year. He's now at Providence. So slightly into Texas Tech. But again, you're starting to talk about similar to the other game, VCU, Texas Tech, like some big numbers to lay on neutrals in these types of games. But I do see an edge for Texas Tech there.
Yeah, Reynolds and Brown, I think, are the two kids there on St. Joe's who can probably start on any program in any country and on any team around the country in that one. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one. I do think if the guards show up and show out, they should be able to keep this thing actually pretty close there. What else did you have, Ralph? Did you have? I know you're locked and loaded here. Anything in college basketball tonight, Ralph, that you're that for the clients over at WagerTalk?
Yeah, I've got two plays today, Joe. So, and again, I know this is the basketball show, but we're getting into the nitty-gritty of football, and we have a great site-wide special at WagerTalk. Rest of NFL or college football season combined through the Super Bowl. The special's on everyone's page. A great time to get a football all access or a 30-day all access for $299 gets you every play in every sport.
Love that. How about you, Trig? What do you got locked, loaded, ready to roll here tonight?
Joe, I should be paying the clients this week to bet my college basketball plays. I've had some bad beats, tough losses the last few days. Ohio to start the day today. Just when you're kind of running a little bit cold, you know that the guy flying off the screen to hit a game-tying three, you know it's going in. But sure enough, that's what happened. And, of course, Ohio, a perfectly clean look to win the game, doesn't go in. So I'm just going to give you what I played in college hoop. I played Baylor. I also played San Francisco. I played it overnight or later last night, so I do think they flipped to a favorite. I played San Francisco +1. It's another 4% play for me, and I kind of like this goes back to last week. I went against Memphis with Ohio. I felt like Ohio played poorly in that game. Another reason I wanted to kind of, try to come back with them here. But I do think Memphis is a little bit overvalued, overrated at this point based on like what I know this Memphis Penny Hardaway coach team to typically be early in the season. So they got a ton of talent, but they've shot the lights out, and I think they've covered every spread so far. They run into a very good San Francisco team, a team that, again, we'll go back to like the what Ralph and I have been talking about this whole show. San Francisco is a perfect example of a team that comes from one of those conferences, the West Coast Conference, where you could get that second bid, right? Because Gonzaga is going no matter what, and you know that they're probably going to win. But that conference usually puts a second team in. Usually it's St. Mary's. A couple of years ago when BYU was still there, it would be BYU. So San Francisco, these games are massive for a team like San Francisco. And I thought getting them at +1 was a decent bet. So Baylor and San Francisco are the two college basketball plays I have remaining for the day. And if you feel like supporting, I had a good week in NFL last week. Football's been on a decent run. So I do have a play in the Thursday night game, and that's up on my page.
The one game, it's funny, we didn't talk about it, but it's the one game I'm looking forward to here tonight, Ralph, is we got the old Civil War going on here with Oregon and Oregon State, with both these teams 4-0 on the season. I mean, Dana Altman, we had heard rumors last year, Ralph, remember, well, what's going on with Dana Altman? Is he going to retire? Is he not? And then he makes that crazy run in March with that team. Both these teams 4-0, and it looks like kind of a bounce-back spot for Oregon State as well. But Oregon feels like a team we should probably keep an eye on this year with him again.
Yeah, but again, you look at the body of work. I wasn't impressed with a 15-point win against Riverside to start the season. Portland, 2 games ago, last Tuesday, they got taken to overtime at home. So, you've got an Oregon team that's played 4 straight games at home, and now they're traveling to the road. And, Oregon State, feels like, we're the little stepchild now. You're in the Big Ten. I'm picking my nose with Washington State here. But their defense is legit. Wayne Tinkle has them playing great defense. And I think that's enough to, to keep it close. Again, they haven't played anyone. So that's why I had no interest in touching the game. Their strength of schedule, 347. And your defensive numbers look great when your average opponent on offense has a rank of 352. So, I would lean Oregon State. I would lean the under. Oregon has pressed the tempo, but again, you have to be very careful when you look at, and a lot of us use KenPom or Torvik or numbers, but when you look at Oregon and I say to you, they have a number 48 tempo on offense. They shoot the ball once every 15.4 seconds. Is that because Altman wants them to play fast? Or is that because you played 4 incredibly shitty teams and all at home? Because look back at last year.
Right.
Oregon on offense was number 249 in tempo. So I think we're getting some value there with Oregon's fake tempo early as huge favorites and now going on the road against a competitive defense.
Good point. Yeah, Wayne Tinkle's got those guys playing some defense for sure at Oregon State. Good.
And one more thing about that, you have to remember that Oregon State and Washington State are now in that same WCC. So that's really the fourth conference. That's really the fourth conference. They're going to get more than one team in. And so now you've got Gonzaga, Oregon State, St. Mary's, San Francisco, Washington State. Like, that's a fourth conference where these are it's just a massive game for Oregon State. Oregon is going to have plenty of huge games. The game is so, I know it's like a rivalry and whatnot. And it's been for years, but this is much more do or die here for Oregon State than Oregon. So I'm with Ralph. I lean toward the Beavers. Not something I bet, but definitely lean toward the Beavers in a true home game here.
Yeah, I'm going to look forward to seeing that game here tonight and litmus test to figure out maybe what is this Oregon team moving forward and how good can Oregon State actually be. So plenty of action here tonight, guys. Plenty of reasons for you to head on over to WagerTalk.com. Visit Ralph Michaels as well as Adam Trigger. Also, another great reason to hit that thumbs up and the subscribe button here and become part of the Wager Talk TV family, as we'll have another edition of the college basketball tip-off show. Same time tomorrow, right around 2:15 Eastern time. It helps if you hit that little bell in the upper right-hand corner. You guys will get notified when we go live. Plenty of college hoops still to come as we get ready for another big weekend of MTE tournaments all over the country, and we have got you covered. So, as always, we appreciate the time. Make sure you come back, join us again tomorrow for another edition of the College Basketball Tip-Off Show. Until then, best of luck with your plays tonight, guys. We'll see you again soon.